This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
It's Golden Sense in full flight for the wire over Flashback, and Golden Sense have won the Santa Ana Derby.
Orb have won the Kentucky Derby. First of the game.
Will take charges surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call.
And Animal Kingdom wins the Dubai World Cup.
Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America for another week. We're starting out our Monday looking back at some of the stakes action over the weekend as really the major preps for the Kentucky Derby have wrapped up. Bluegrass and Arkansas Derby this past weekend. Arkansas Derby also wrapping up the action at Oaklawn as their season is now ended. I've said it before, watch these Oaklawn horses as they ship out to other venues. Coming up a little bit later on the show, again, we will be concentrating on some of the stakes action, doing a little review. Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network, our regular Monday guest for stakes recaps. He'll be coming on. And then a little later on, Mike Kane. Mike Kane, of course, a familiar face to those of us locally. He was the YNN blogger for Saratoga for a couple of seasons. This past summer, he was doing research for NBC. He's going to continue as an NBC researcher through the Triple Crown this year. Also a contributor to the Courier Journal. Does notes on Kentucky Derby weekend for Churchill Downs. But he's also an NTRA poll voter, and that's one of the reasons I have him on this week. There's a couple of polls up until the Triple Crown ends. The NTRA does a general thoroughbred poll every week and a 3-year-old poll, and I want to get Mike's thoughts as a poll voter on where we are on the 3-year-old scene now that the major preps are done for the Kentucky Derby, and also some of his thoughts on the older horses and how they're shaking out, how he'll be voting this week in light of Will Take Charge, Wise Dan this past weekend, both of them with nice wins Friday and Saturday at both Keeneland and Oaklawn. Do want to remind you of some of the events coming up in April here at Capital OTB before we move on to some of the news. Another Fan Appreciation Day later this week, coming up this Friday, the 18th, Fan Appreciation Day at the Star Plaza branch. So if you're a regular out there, make your way to the Star Plaza branch on Friday, Fan Appreciation Day. A couple of Showviver contests online. The next two Saturdays, Saturday the 19th, Saturday the 26th, Showviver, capitalotb.com. And certainly we want to remind you that on the 25th, Friday the 25th, a $500 happy hour bankroll right here at the Clubhouse Racebook with Tim Wilkin and Mike Jarbo of the Times-Union. They'll be playing, again, Friday the 25th, a couple of Fridays from now, from 2:30 to 6:30. There'll be some randomly selected folks that will be able to participate in the bankroll, and that comes up again right here, 711 Central Avenue in Albany, Clubhouse Racebook on Friday the 25th, $500 happy hour bankroll. Wilkin and Jarbo. And don't forget, yesterday, no racing on the network, no racing available in New York State due to laws that prevent the wagering or conducting of horse racing in New York State on Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. I continue to say it's an anachronism in this day and age, but that's the way it is. So don't forget, this coming Sunday, there will be no racing as well. No racing, no wagering through Capital OTB. A couple of Sundays, yesterday and the upcoming Easter Sunday as well. Some of the news, some hopefully good news to report. This came out on the Daily Racing Forum website late Saturday night, an update on the condition of Steve Crist, the editor and publisher emeritus of the Daily Racing Forum. Family members have reported that Crist is in stable condition. He did have some type of surgery on Friday, but was reported to be doing better. It was a week ago yesterday that he had a cardiac event, cardiac arrest. At that point, he was listed in stable but critical condition for a few days, but now they're saying his condition is stable. It was reported in just a little short update, again, that was on the Daily Racing Forum site. It was reported that Saturday, he actually spent some of Saturday night watching replays of the Bluegrass and the Arkansas Derby. So that sounds like good news. Again, all our good thoughts go to Steve Christ and family, that he gets a nice rebound and comes out of this healthy and well. Bluegrass was Saturday, and it was notable. One of the articles covering it mentioned attendance Saturday at the Bluegrass, 39,722. That's the second highest in Keeneland's history. So a nice day and a nice crowd as well. Again, the rumors of the death of horse racing have been greatly exaggerated. I've said it before. The fannies in the seat metric just doesn't work anymore most of the time because folks can bet from home. But I think then you have to look at parse out meets like Oaklawn, Del Mar, Saratoga, Keeneland. There are certain meets during the year that I think can warrant that kind of scrutiny looking at attendance, Keeneland being one of them. But they validated that things are still humming when the weather's good and the racing is good. 39,000 plus show up, the second highest attendance total in Keeneland history on this past Saturday. And we should be having, again, Oaklawn's meet wound up on Saturday. I didn't pull up their attendance figures. I'll try to get that for tomorrow for closing day. Certainly, they had a very nice card down there as well with the Oaklawn Handicap Arkansas Derby. But overall, their numbers for the entire meet should be coming out within the next few days. Always interested to see what they do because, again, they're one of those unique meets. It's kind of certainly longer than Saratoga, but still you would think under the definition of a boutique meet, and they seem to do very well. I thoroughly like their racing product and the value I get down there. So again, I'll be interested to see what the numbers are this season for Oaklawn, which wrapped up on Saturday. Going back to last Thursday, Edgar Prado was injured in a training accident at Keeneland, and it looks like he'll be away from the races for at least 30 days. He had a neck injury when a horse he was working head went back and collided with Edgar Prado's head. The article I have covering it says that the horse hit Edgar in the face, and Edgar was knocked out when he fell. So, it was anytime you're knocked out, I think it's a fairly serious injury, but it was the kind that he was up and about fairly quickly, as I understand it, and the injury, though, is some kind of a fracture in the neck, which, again, will warrant being away at least 30 days. So if you don't see Edgar Prado's name in the entries, that's why. A little bit of a training incident down at Keeneland on Thursday sent him to the sidelines. Keeping up with the Derby Trail and the 3-year-olds, obviously, again, we'll be talking about the weekend stakes in a few moments, getting a much, much closer look on those. But some workouts of note over the weekend. She Too and Midnight Hawk worked for Bob Baffert. Both of them worked on Sunday morning at Santa Anita. She Too went 5 furlongs in a minute .80. Midnight Hawk 6 furlongs in a minute 13.60. According to the article, Daily Racing Forum follow-up, Opportunity, She Too, and Midnight Hawk are under consideration for the Derby. Baffert less enthusiastic about Bayern, who at this point doesn't have the points to get in anyway, but he wasn't thrilled, obviously, with the effort put in Arkansas on the weekend. Of the works, Baffert was a little more high on Midnight Hawk. He said She Too got a little bit tired. She Too is on my top 10. Midnight Hawk, and I debated, did not make it. So now I'm reading this and I'm thinking maybe I should have flip-flopped them. But that's the outcome of weekend works, She Too and Midnight Hawk. Also working out on the East Coast, Cairo Prince and some Pletcher runners. Cairo Prince, who this week I moved up my my list, actually. My ESPN Derby poll list, and I'm not going to be able to find it now. Here we go. The poll that I sent in last night, I moved Cairo Prince back up to number 5. My list completely juggled around after the weekend, but I'm just kind of feeling that maybe that last race was a good setup for moving forward to the Derby. Karen McLaughlin was reported in the article talking about the Cairo Prince workout as finally having a good night's sleep on Saturday when he knew that Cairo Prince had enough points to get in. Cairo Prince now sits at number 20 on the Kentucky Derby leaderboard points list with 24 points. So you would think he's in. There is still the Lexington that could shake things up, but as we were talking earlier on the handicappers report, if you just look and do the math, it's very unlikely that Cairo Prince will be passed. So Cairo Prince in. Kieran McLaughlin says he has a good night's sleep when he found that out after the results were clear and the points leaderboard was updated on Saturday. Cairo Prince subsequently went out on Sunday morning down at Palm Meadows in Florida, easy half mile in 48.77. So there was your workout for Cairo Prince, of which McLaughlin said, I thought the work this morning was great. We'll do the same thing next week, going 5 furlongs, and then Cairo Prince will fly to Kentucky on the 22nd and have one last workout there. Pletcher had some workers as well. Constitution worked solo, won a very easy half mile, 50.55, 5/8 and 103.57. And Pletcher says pretty much exactly the same breeze we had after his allowance win, a very easy half. We Miss Artie, an intense holiday, worked in company, completing 4 furlongs in 48.67. Pletcher says, I thought they both went very well, galloped out real well with good energy. And like Cairo Prince, the Pletcher horses will work again next Sunday at Palm Meadows and then leave for Louisville on April 22nd. Interesting story, interesting horse that's going to be fun to root for. The Arkansas Derby runner-up, Ride on Curlin. There was a story, and I have it linked on Equidaily today, Courier Journal story, about Bronco Billy Gowan, who trains Ride on Curlin. Ride on Curlin, one of only 3 horses in Billy Gowan's stable. And as the Courier Journal article, Jenny Reese's article states, a little bit of a reminder going back to Tom McCarthy, who had General Quarters win the Bluegrass and move on to the Kentucky Derby as the only horse in his barn. Ride on Curlin, similar in that Tom McCarthy claimed General Quarters out of his debut maiden claiming race for $20,000. Ride on Curlin, trainer Billy Gowan recommended him to the owner in a Keeneland September sale for $25,000. So similar price-wise as well. But again, when a guy goes to Kentucky with only 3 horses in the stable, you have to tip your cap to him, and Ride on Curlin headed to the Kentucky Derby for Bronco Billy Gowan. Shared Belief, continuing on the 3-year-old theme, Shared Belief, there was an article Friday in the Racing Forum that Shared Belief will have a workout shortly. It was not said when that will be, but Jerry Hollendorfer said on Friday that the horse will have his first real official workout since January. That will be coming up. This, of course, was the 2-year-old champion of 2013, Shared Belief, who has been on the sidelines with an injured hoof, headed back to a workout. No race in mind for Hollendorfer. Obviously, the schedule fluid in that they haven't even said the actual workout. And I didn't see over the weekend, I didn't see that he'd work. I think there would have been a notation of that. But Hollendorfer says a comeback race in June or July is a possibility. Talked a little bit about this on the handicappers report earlier. The Ogden Phipps at Belmont on June 7th is shaping up to be a heck of a race. Closed Hatches comes out of the Apple Blossom win down at Oaklawn on Friday and is said to now be pointing for Belmont and Juddmonte, be pointing to the Ogden Phipps. Princess of Silmar came out of her debut win a week or so ago. They're pointing towards the Ogden Phipps. And Beholder is entered in this coming Sunday's Santa Lucia Stakes at Santa Anita, and Beholder is also then going to be pointed towards the Ogden Phipps. So Beholder, Princess of Silmar, Closed Hatches, the three top 3-year-old fillies from last year, now 4-year-old fillies, 2 of them are back on track in winning fashion. We'll keep our fingers crossed that Beholder this Sunday gets it done at Santa Anita, and things set up for really a great race at Belmont on June 7th, the Ogden Phipps, with the 3 older fillies now. Adding yet another division of really special horses to what is turning out to be a great 2014. And just before we go to the break, do want to mention Marino. If you saw that he scratched from the Oaklawn Handicap, and there was kind of an interesting storyline there, and Marino will take charge, meeting up in the Oaklawn Handicap. Marino ends up getting scratched. And Eric Eo, the trainer, reported that he had a little bit of a case of shipping fever once he got to Arkansas, came up with a temperature Thursday. They had to give antibiotics to reduce the fever, and that resulted in the scratch. Now, Gio says they may point for this coming weekend's Charlestown Classic, the $1 million race. So we'll see how that shakes out for Marino. And I didn't mention it last week, but Lee is going to miss the Charlestown Classic due to a fever, miss some training for Bill Mott. So Lee is out of that race. Game on Dude, on the other hand, over the weekend, a very nice workout out in Southern California in prep for the weekend's Charlestown Classic. Again, we'll talk more about that race as the week progresses. All right, we'll take our first break. When we come back, we will be joined by Mike Penna, Horse Racing Radio Network. Weekend stakes recap right after this.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Triple Threat on May 10th. So sign up today, online at CapitalOTB.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. With a newly designed and engineered internet wagering platform, enhanced video streaming, additional funding options, and 3 new individual wagering opportunities, CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. Combine that with our all-new mobile website. You have 2 of the most powerful, innovative, and advanced wagering platforms available today. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
It's called the fastest 2 minutes in sports, and the tradition continues Saturday, May 3rd with the 140th running of the Kentucky Derby. If you can't make it to the Clubhouse Racebook in Albany, you can still be a part of the action by visiting one of our many Easy Bet or branch locations conveniently located throughout upstate New York. For a complete list of our Easy Bet and branch locations, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB and CapitalOTBBet.com. The most convenient ways to wager on all the Triple Crown races.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Always happy to be joined by Mike Penna of the Horse Racing Radio Network. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Seth.
And happy to be joined by you because it always means a recap of the weekend stakes action, and this weekend really special, Oaklawn and Keeneland. We'll touch on that in a moment, but we also like to also get a little update on what's available on the archives at the Horse Racing Radio Network website. And I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I'm going to have to pull it up, but I noted last week you had Wayne Lucas on, and he's a reluctant get. I've tried to get him on the TV side up at Saratoga for a couple of seasons, and he's very reluctant. So you did a good job pulling him on, and I have to imagine as now the elder statesman of the sport, he had to be entertaining.
Yeah, Wayne's always entertaining, and such a good interview, and somebody who just speaks his mind and tells it like it is, and he did that with both of the horses that I asked him about. I brought him on to talk about Will Take Charge in the Oaklawn Handicap and then discuss Strong Mandate in the Arkansas Derby. But maybe the most entertaining thing was when he talked about California Chrome. I asked him about that Calbred horse, who is of course going to be the favorite for the Kentucky Derby after winning the Santa Anita Derby. And Wayne, an old quarter horse guy, could certainly relate to a horse training at Los Alamitos. But I asked him if he ever thought he would see the day when there would be a thoroughbred who trained at Los Alamitos, let alone a California-bred thoroughbred, that would go on and be favored for the Kentucky Derby. And he said, no, not in a million years. He never expected that, but he said that California Chrome's a serious horse. He complimented Art Sherman and then talked a little bit more about him, and that was probably the most entertaining part of the entire interview.
Yeah, as I say, he's a guy, he's a tough get, but he's at this stage of the career, as I say, elder statesman, and he's, as you say, a frank speaker, and lets his mind be known, and he's got some good opinions about the industry in general. And when it comes this time of year, the particular horses, so if folks want to find that, they can go back to the Horse Racing Radio Network website, pull it up on the archives. Mike, let's shift our attention, talk a little bit of racing now, and we're going to go back. Usually we concentrate on the weekend, but now we're going to go back to Friday, because at both Oaklawn and Keeneland, there were some nice races on Friday to kind of get an early kickoff to the weekend. We'll kick things off going back to Oaklawn on Friday. Racing Festival of the South was in full swing. Grade 1 Apple Blossom, $600,000, mile and a 16th. It was a short field of 5, but certainly with closed hatches in there was a lot of attention paid. Close Hatches will be the number 1 horse on this replay. And I tell you, at the top of the stretch, I thought she might be up against it a little bit. She put up some pretty good fractions, going wire to wire, hit the 3/4 in 110, and I thought On Fire Baby, the number 4 horse, the defending champion of the race, might make a nice late move. But boy, Close Hatches just dug in. And Mike, as I said earlier, it's now shaping up to be a really special mid-season event at Belmont with the Ogden Phipps, Princess of Selmar, Close Hatches, and potentially Beholder as well. But this was certainly a nice event for Close Hatches.
Yeah, looking like a rematch of that Breeders' Cup, and rightfully so. I mean, these are 3 outstanding fillies, and when you take a look at a horse like Close Hatches, Steph, she's done very little wrong throughout much of her career. Her only poor effort when she finished worse than second came in the Kentucky Oaks last year, so she'll look to, of course, rebound from that effort and turn the tables on some of the horses that beat her that day, namely Princess of Silmar and Beholder. But yeah, in terms of the Apple Blossom, she did it not maybe as easily as you would have expected, because she was such a heavy favorite, and I question maybe the strength of that field in terms of being grade 1 quality. On Fire Baby is really, really nice, but she may have lost a step from where she was back in the day. And she really did run a pretty good race, but she wasn't going to get the Close Hatches in here. It was one of those deals where Close Hatches was just too classy for this group, and she proved it down the stretch.
Yeah, and you may be making a good point there. As I say, at the top of the stretch, it looked like she might get caught, but then she just dug in resolutely, and a lot of times that kind of thing just does indicate a little bit of a class edge. They just couldn't get to her. Speaking of class, let's shift our attention up to Keeneland on Friday. The Maker's Mile, Grade 1 event, $300,000, 1 mile on the turf, right in the wheelhouse for Wise Dan. His seasonal debut, we'll watch the number 3 Wise Dan get it done. I was going to say had to work a little bit at the end. Didn't really have to work a little bit at the end. I think John Velasquez may have been gearing down and knew he had it. But Kagan, the number 7 horse, does make a pretty good late run here to close to within 3/4 of a length. But Wise Dan in the seasonal debut does get it done at 2-5.
Yeah, he does, and he was really a handful for Johnny early when they turned up the backside. You could see when they showed the close-up that Johnny was, had his feet in the dashboard and was really pulling on the reins just to kind of settle him down a little bit, and that's not atypical for horses that come off of a layoff like this. He was feeling pretty good, and I think Johnny knew at every point that he was on the best horse, obviously, and he kept him in the clear, kept him on the outside, and Wise Dan did exactly what he needed to do today. I think Charlie Lepresti, his trainer, would be very pleased with the effort. You get by that first one, you take a breath, and you say, okay, good, now he's back. We haven't started again. We knew that this probably wasn't going to be his best effort, and for those that were running against him, hey, if you were going to take a shot to beat Wise Dan, why not do it when he's coming back from a layoff like this and may not be 100% fully cranked, but it didn't matter. As you said earlier, just too classy for this group and able to get it done at a very short price. And I would really love to see Wise Dan try the dirt this year and throw his hat into the ring with some of these outstanding older horses that we have in a division, an older horse division that's absolutely loaded. I think it would be outstanding if Wise Dan were to do that and not just stick to these grass races that he's had for much of his career. It'd be awesome to see him try the dirt and take out some of the bigger names in the sport.
Yeah, and after the Eclipse Awards last year, they indicated that would be the game plan, and then it seemed like last week maybe they hedged a little bit and said, let's see what happens on Friday. But now he comes out of it with the win, and I'm with you. Once you got a couple of Horse of the Year trophies in your back pocket, it seems like this is the year to maybe play around a little bit and take a little bit of a shot. That said, it is a very interesting handicap division to play into, but that just makes it all the more exciting for the game in general. So hopefully they'll be sporting and step up.
Yeah, it becomes much more interesting if Wise Dan does throw his hat into that ring. As a matter of fact, you mentioned the D. Wayne Lucas interview. As he talked about Will Take Charge before the Oaklawn Handicap this week, he actually brought that up, and he says, I asked him about the division, and he said, well, yeah, it's a very strong division. He said, but what if Wise Dan tries the dirt? Wouldn't that be fun? And he's 100% right. I think everybody would like to see it. I think if you're going to have any type of a knock on Wise Dan, or if anybody's going to try and kind of poke holes in his resume, it's the fact that he hasn't raced on dirt, and he hasn't raced at these classic distances on dirt. So if he were to do that, he would obviously, if he were successful, put all of his doubters to rest.
Yeah, again, it is shaping up to be a fun year, and that would just add another really good storyline to things. All right, let's shift our attention to Keeneland on Saturday. Before we talk some of the races specifically, you were there with the Horse Racing Radio Network. I just want to know what the buzz was like on track, because I just read one of the articles that came out within the past couple of days. 39,700 plus people, second largest attendance in Keeneland history.
Yeah, it was jam-packed. I had a chance to take a little break from the press box and walk around a couple of hours before we went on the air. I guess it was about 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. And at that point, they were still streaming in through the gates, just trying to get in there in time for the Bluegrass Stakes. And it was amazing. Yeah, second largest in history. And you wonder, Seth, with Keeneland now talking about hosting a Breeders' Cup, there's 39,000. You could hardly move in that facility. They're going to have to really look at some innovative ideas in terms of the temporary seating and then how to service those people when they're there to give them the good on-track experience. But it was great to see, and, as I said during our coverage, who says that horse racing is dead?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said at the top of the show when I referred to that article. The rumors of horse racing's death are greatly exaggerated when you look at days like that. And Mike, before we get to the Bluegrass, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the undercard, and specifically Judy the Beauty in the Madison Grade 1 event, $300,000. Judy the Beauty, John Velasquez on board, Wesley Ward trains. I was amazed, and I said on the handicapping show earlier, this is one of those pieces of information that easily slips under the radar until it happens and somebody makes a point of it. But according to what I read, this was Wesley Ward's first Grade 1 win.
Isn't that hard to believe? And Judy the Beauty's first Grade 1 win as well. You don't expect that because Wesley has had so much success, and he's won here, he's won at Royal Ascot, and it doesn't strike you. He doesn't strike you as a person that would still be looking for that first Grade 1 victory. But it was a great accomplishment for him and for Judy the Beauty. And Seth, I have to say, I think that she is undoubtedly the leader in this division now. This was a division the last couple of years that was owned by Groupie Dow. Now with Groupie Dow retiring, it looks to me like Judy the Beauty is the one that's going to pick up the baton and run with it.
And so maybe it'll be a few more Grade 1s through Judy the Beauty. Once that first one comes, maybe they'll start coming down for Wesley Ward. I found that very surprising, though, because, again, he's been, as you say, so successful. All right, let's take a look now at the Bluegrass that was run on Saturday, the last one on a synthetic surface. And between the 2 3-year-old races on the weekend, I think this is probably the one that was the least inspiring, at least for me, as far as going forward to the Kentucky Derby. But we'll watch the stretch run here. It will be the number 8 Dance with Fate getting it done in this event, and running second will be number 13 Medal Count, who validates the chance that Dale Romans took coming back in only a week. But Dance with Fate, kind of interesting, comes in from Southern California from Peter Urton. It seems like they're a little bit reluctant to go forward to the Kentucky Derby. Medal Count, not so much. They were in to get the points, so he'll certainly go forward. But what are your thoughts coming out of the Bluegrass?
Yeah, no surprise that Dale Romans will be moving on to the Kentucky Derby with Medal Count, and you're right, that was their goal all along. And Dale has always been extremely high on this horse. I can remember talking with him and talking with some of the people that we had on the radio show last year, and they were talking about this horse before the Breeders' Cup, saying, hey, he is a serious racehorse, and dirt, turf, synthetic, it doesn't matter. He can run on anything. Well, he's going to have to prove that 3 weeks from this past Saturday beneath the Twin Spires, if indeed he can handle a dirt surface, because he hasn't shown it in the couple of tries that he's had on dirt. So we'll see how he comes out of this and how he does it. And keep in mind, that will be his third start in the span of 4 weeks or so. So that's going to be an ambitious campaign for Medal Count, and we'll see if he can overcome it. In terms of the winner, Dance with Fate, they were pointing for this race all along because of the synthetic surface. He's a horse in California that had shown an ability to handle those types of surfaces, and although he ran well in the front-runner stakes on dirt at Santa Anita last September, he was second behind Bondholder that day. His connections feel like he's a better horse on a synthetic surface, and now they're kind of on the fence as to whether they're going to continue on to Louisville for the Kentucky Derby, but he is certainly one of the ones that is now automatically qualified, and it was a really good race on Saturday. They had a goal picked out. They said, this is where we want to go. This is the race we want to win. And Corey Nakatani, a great ride. Dance with Fate sitting off the pace, able to rally past the field late and hold off that charge from Medal Count.
And it will be interesting to see what their decision is, because they said before the race, this, meaning the Bluegrass, is kind of our Kentucky Derby. That's what we're pointing to. But once you get those points, I just wonder if the siren call of the Kentucky Derby isn't too great. Although I was very interested, just another indication of 21st century horse training, how it's changed since when I first got in the game. Peter Urton said, yeah, the Derby's coming up pretty quick. It's 3 weeks away. I remember when the Bluegrass itself was less than 2 weeks out from the race. So it's just, things have just changed, but it will be interesting to see, as I say, what decision they make. Because when you get the points and it's sitting out there, you just don't get that many shots at the Kentucky Derby.
No, just the opposite of the philosophy from Dale Romans, who had no problem bringing Medal Count back on 8 days rest and now coming back in 3 more weeks. I mean, heck, maybe we'll give him one more prep in the Derby trial just to make sure he has him 100% fit.
We were talking earlier, the Derby trial now is kind of poorly named because the Derby trial has no points attached to it anymore. The Lexington is the last wild card race. It's only worth 10 points, but last year the Derby trial was in the same category. Derby trial, no points this year. So the Derby trial is not really even and given the calendar, it hasn't been a Derby prep for a while really, but it just, with no points, Churchill is kind of shooting themselves in the foot, it seems like. I'm surprised they didn't keep a few points attached to it.
Yeah, I know. And truthfully, Seth, when you look at the Bluegrass Stakes, since the inception of the Polytrack Racing Surface in 2007, which was the first Bluegrass run over the synthetic, it really hasn't been a relevant Derby prep either. Street Sense, the only horse to come out of the Bluegrass and win the Kentucky Derby. Of course, Keeneland going back to dirt next year, so hopefully it will bring the Bluegrass back to relevance. And when you look at the horses coming out of it this year, Medal Count, Dance with Fate, they don't strike me as horses that are going to be short prices in Louisville in 3 weeks.
Yeah, as I said, between the 2 3-year-old races on the weekend, the one that's less inspiring is the Bluegrass, and partly because these either seem like synthetic horses or perhaps turf horses, so we'll see how that shakes out. Let's go down to Oaklawn on Saturday, get some of your thoughts on a couple of their races. We'll take a look at the Oaklawn handicap. This was setting up nicely for Will Take Charge. Folks thought that this would be the spot where he could get his first win of the year, but it was not without controversy. We're going to watch the stretch run here. Will Take Charge, the number 2 horse, and Luis Saez. A little bit of bumping involved there. Revolutionary will come up to finish second. Carve finishes third in here. And Mike, I said it earlier on the handicapping show. When I look at these DQs or inquiries, I kind of, as I'm watching, put it in my own mind a percentage. I'm 70-30 for a disqualification, or I'm 90-10 for no DQ or something like that. This to me was probably 60-40, maybe 55-45. I would have brought the horse down, but it was so close, I didn't argue with the non-DQ.
Yeah, it was very close, and as we watched the replay, of course, this was one of the races we had on our coverage, and jockey Shane Sellers was my analyst on Saturday, and it was great to have him on board for this type of an incident, because I was able to ask him what he was seeing, and from the rider's perspective, what's going on now with the objection, what type of case are you pleading to the stewards right now? And as we watched it and looked at it, he brought up a great point. Mike Smith on Revolutionary, who was one of the horses affected when Will Take Charge came in, he said, Mike never stopped riding. It never affected his riding motion at all. He just kept going. And he said, that to me looks like he was not affected. However, Gary Stevens on Golden Lad had to check and pull up sharply, and that cost him all chance. But truthfully, I think that was a tiring horse, and Golden Lad wasn't going to win this race anyways. And I'm sure that when the stewards took a look at it, that's what they came up with as well. But I thought it was an interesting point on Mike Smith, that even though Revolutionary came back and made it close at the end, which is where I think the true inquiry, at least a lot of people thinking that maybe Will Take Charge should have come down, I think that's the reason why, because Revolutionary came back and did make it close, and people thought, well, if he wasn't interfered with, then maybe he would have been better than Will Take Charge. But Mike never had to stop riding on Revolutionary, and it never affected his chances at all.
Yeah, and as I was watching, I was thinking the same thing. Sometimes you see the jocks stand up a little bit, and sometimes you wonder how much of play acting is involved there, how much of, an analogy to basketball, how much of a flop is going on there. But Mike didn't stop riding at all. What I thought was interesting was how long the inquiry took. Once it took as long as it did, I thought they were probably going to go for the DQ, but they didn't. All of that said, again, off of the first couple of races this year from Will Take Charge, you knew he was going to be a player in the division, but finally now he has a 2014 win on the resume.
Yeah, he does have a win, and he's a horse that everybody would tell you is a major player in this division now. You look at what he's done even his past couple of starts, even when he didn't win. Second behind Game On Dude in the Santa Anita Handicap, and second behind Lee in the Don Handicap, and even go back to where he won the Clark, defeating Game On Dude 3 starts back. He's always right there. He's a hard-trying horse, and he's going to be tough to leave out of any tickets in any of these big races.
Yeah, again, that division is shaping up to be fun. We talked about the older fillies and mares and the 3-year-olds certainly. So 2014, at least in the first third of the year, is really living up to any expectations folks might have. Let's just talk before we move on. I want to get your thoughts. We'll watch it in a little while in the next segment. But the Arkansas Derby, Danza, the 41-1 upsetter for Todd Pletcher. Ride on Curlin second. Bayern, a disappointing third. Tapiture, an even more disappointing fourth. Conquest Titan fifth. I thought Danza was kind of interesting. I mean, this is a very lightly raced horse, but he does have that 2-year-old record, so he's not absolutely bucking Kentucky Derby trends. This could be a horse that is just getting right at the right time.
Yeah, maybe so. Even with that being said, like a lot of people, I didn't see this coming on Saturday. Maybe the best thing to come out of it now is the actor Tony Danza is out there on social media tweeting about horse racing, so that doesn't hurt for the exposure of the sport. He'll be a long shot when he gets to Churchill Downs as well. Tip your hat to Joe Bravo. Nice ride by Joe, slipping through along the inside, saved the ground, and then drove clear. And Danza wasn't going to be denied. It wasn't like they were gaining on him at the end. He was able to pull away from this field. So tip your hat to him. I'm thinking that this was his day in the sun, and he's going to struggle in Louisville. But, how'd you like to be one of the horses that's sitting on the bubble when you watch this 40-1 Danza come flying in there, a horse that didn't have any Derby points and now automatically qualified and bounces you back a little bit if you're on the bubble?
Yeah, and Cairo Prince now sitting at number 20 with 24 points. Just gets over Uncle Si, also with 24 points based on the stakes earnings. Uncle Si now just off the list, but again, that decision by Dance with Fate might move him into the mix as well. And Mike, before I let you go, again, you're a member of the voters in the Courier Journal Media Derby poll. This week you had Dance with Fate at number 15, Danza at number 20. Overall, the top 10 on the Courier-Journal poll, seemed unimpressed with the weekend results. But I wanted to go to your top 4. California Chrome, Constitution, Samrat, and Cairo Prince. I'm a voter in the ESPN poll. I moved Cairo Prince up to number 2 this week. I think he's kind of interesting.
I think he's very interesting. Just the fact that Kieran has been so high on him, and he's talked in depth about this being his best chance to win the Kentucky Derby. And his race in the Florida Derby wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible either. He got a start into him. He had been coming off that lengthy layoff where he hadn't run in 8 or 9 weeks going into the Florida Derby. Kieran thought that he was fit enough to put up a good effort, and he thankfully held on for 4th, because we wouldn't even be having this conversation about Cairo Prince if he was 5th. But he was able to hold on, and I think he gets in. I don't think he'll have any issues, obviously, as you said, sitting there at number 20 right now, so he's going to be in that field. And I do think he's very interesting. His running style, he has the back class, and with Kieran's confidence in the horse, why not? He deserves, with everything that he's been able to accomplish, he deserves to at least be in most people's top 10.
Yeah, and he may, if other folks like us kind of find him interesting, they may get some value on that "what have you done for me lately" kind of scenario. He may sneak in there. So he's one, as I say, I find very interesting. Mike, as always, we appreciate the visit, the recap of some of the stakes action. Again, we will point people to the Horse Racing Radio Network. Check out the archives this past week. Again, Wayne Lucas was on board. Oh, and coming up, Charlestown Classic this weekend, right?
Charlestown Classic, we'll be there. We'll be live at Charlestown for that coverage coming up on Saturday night. We're also going to have the Coolmore Lexington from Keeneland as part of our broadcast schedule on Saturday as well. So it's a huge, huge weekend. It's our final major race weekend before we turn our attention all to the Kentucky Derby. We'll be over at Churchill for 15 hours of coverage starting the Wednesday before, actually the Tuesday night before the Derby. We'll have live coverage at the Derby Trainer Dinner, so that's always a lot of fun, and people can get a little different perspective of what the sport's all about when they listen to those interviews from so many of the Derby connections and the Derby trainers that are there. And just one quick note, Seth, when people go to the website, they're going to be able to listen to a podcast of this past Saturday's Equine Forum show. Bill Thomason, who is the president and CEO of Keeneland, sat down with me for about 15 minutes, and some interesting things coming out of that, talking about the Polytrack, talking about the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, and talking about the issues facing the industry. So I'd highly recommend it. It was some good stuff from Bill.
Nice. And again, that's the Horse Racing Radio Network website. Mike, thanks again for the visit. We'll talk to you next week.
Great. Thanks, Seth.
Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network. We'll take our next break. When we come back, Mike Kane. We'll talk a little more weekend action, 3-year-olds and older horses, right after this.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB Bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
It's called the fastest 2 minutes in sports, and the tradition continues Saturday, May 3rd with the 140th running of the Kentucky Derby. And there's only one place to watch it, the Clubhouse Racebook. To be a part of the excitement, reserve your seat today by calling 446-4010.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As noted before the break, we're happy to be joined now by Mike Kane, a freelance racing writer. He covers racing for the Courier-Journal. You can find his notes Kentucky Derby Week via Churchill Downs. Also does research for NBC. We'll be continuing to do that through the Triple Crown races. And as I noted earlier, also an NTRA poll voter. And wanted to have him on this morning in relation to the poll, looking at the older horses and the 3-year-olds, because now all the Derby preps, all the major Derby preps are in our back pockets. And we also had some nice racing over this past weekend involving the older horses. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
And Mike, first up, I thought we haven't had a chance to look at it yet this morning. I thought we'd fire up the Arkansas Derby from Oaklawn on Saturday. Number 1, Danza, will get it done at 41-1. Number 4, Ride On Curlin, will run second. Number 8, Bayern third. Tapiture fourth. Conquest Titan fifth. But Mike, what was your takeaway from the Arkansas Derby? Danza, I think Danza is a little bit interesting. Lightly raced, but it is a Pletcher horse. Does have some 2-year-old racing on the resume, so won't be going against that trend. And the way he did it at Arkansas, now either the horses behind him weren't too much, or this might be an interesting horse.
I agree with you a little bit on the he might be interesting because, first of all, the first observation is, my goodness, when's the last time a Todd Pletcher horse won at 41-1 in a Grade 1 race? That's just an amazing thing. But based on what we had seen from him before, you can understand where he would be kind of off the radar a bit. But he made the move. He got the inside rail trip, and that was the best place to be for him. And just kind of dwarfed this field by the way he opened up on those guys. We were all looking for Bayern and Tapiture to be the stars here, and they just didn't have it. They just weren't good enough, and it looks like Bayern, that poor performance will probably cost him a shot at the Kentucky Derby. So when Ride On Curlin, what did he beat him by a half length? Boy, I tell you, that was another one like the Wood, where a nose could decide who gets into the Derby. But with Danza, I'm interested. Now, please, I don't consider myself a huge expert on pedigree. I'm wondering whether a Street Boss, he certainly was, his game was sprinting, whether a Son of Street Boss is going to want to go 1.25 miles, but he certainly looked okay going 1.1 miles on Saturday. I think that's probably one question I have, but he's going to have the opportunity to get in there and make that move. And I'm going to say this about him. I like to see young horses like that can do that, can come up the rail, make the most of an opportunity. Constitution did that 2 weeks ago in the Florida Derby, and you had to like seeing that from him. Was able to accelerate when an opportunity came along. It was very good.
And let me ask you this. I'm a voter in the ESPN poll. Again, you're on the NTRA poll. My poll that I sent in last night, Tapiture last week, and I said last week, my poll stood a chance of really getting shaken up this weekend, and it absolutely did. The poll I sent out this week had 4 horses on it that weren't on the poll before, so things really were shaken up. I had Tapiture on top, kind of by default over the past few weeks. He moves down to number 8 for me, so I keep him on my list, but with some trepidation. I see that last week on your NTRA poll ballot, he was number 6 on your 3-year-old poll. What are you going to do with Tapiture this week?
Yeah, I just voted a little while ago, and I did drop him down. I moved Danza into the mix at number 9 and dropped Tapiture down. He's below 10. He only have 10 spots in the NTRA poll. So he was the only one that I really moved around in there. I had to give him a little bit of a toss with some of these others. I think have been. I had to put them up above him. Simple as that. Not that he's, running that race precludes him for doing well in the Derby, but he certainly didn't do well that day, and, we'll see.
Yeah, and as I say, I have a number 8, but with some trepidation myself. Yeah. And I see, again, obviously, nobody had Dance with Fate on their tickets last week, but we showed the Bluegrass a little bit earlier. Dance with Fate got it done over medal count. Those are the two that clearly are the most interesting coming out of the Bluegrass, although Dance with Fate's subsequently moving forward to the Kentucky Derby is still up in the air. Did either of those horses attract any attention from you coming out of the weekend?
No. I'm a little skeptical of the Bluegrass horses most years. Now, let's face it, Palace Malice ran second a year ago and has come out and become a really nice horse. And who knows what he would have done in the Derby if they hadn't put the blinkers on him last year. And Dullahan's a nice horse. I'm not saying that race is a throw-out race necessarily, but those horses just didn't do it for me this year. And on top of that, hearing what the trainer had to say about them likely to skip, admitting as much that he has a synthetic horse and doesn't want to wheel back 3 weeks. Is he going to be a nice horse and win races on the synthetic tracks or possibly as a turf horse? I would guess he would. But he didn't excite me as far as becoming a big Derby prospect, and he didn't crack my top 10 that way. And we'll see. He didn't going to crack the top 10 for me either. But what's going to happen with him? Is he going to come back in another 3 weeks after running 2 times already in the last couple of weeks? Big ask for him.
Yeah, and he was a little bit of a wise guy horse in the Breeders' Cup last year, and flopped there. And, his dirt form is a little bit questionable, but I applaud Dale Romans for coming back in a week to get the Derby points and getting it done. So hats off to him for that. And I'm just, again, looking at your NTRA poll. Going back to last week, obviously you were impressed with the results. California Chrome, number 1. Constitution, number 2. Wicked Strong, number 3. So 2 of your top 3 positions were the winners last week, Santa Anita and Aqueduct.
Yeah, and, I had to put Wicked Strong over Samrat because he beat him. And Samrat, I couldn't say he was beaten, and he was beaten pretty decisively by Wicked Strong. So I like Samrat, and I kept him up there at number 4. I tell you, of the 3 horses, if I had to make a bet right now, today, I would probably bet Constitution in the Derby. I know he's lately raced. I liked what I saw out of him. California Chrome, some years I really liked the California horses, and he's been crushing people. But I don't know. I'm at this point now, a couple weeks out, I'm still kind of having trouble thinking that the California horses are the strongest group. So I know I'm hedging a little bit on that. He has to go onto the top of the list because he's had the best campaign coming in here. There's no doubt about it. But if you ask me, like I said, if I had to bet the race right now, I might just go with Constitution.
And let's shift our attention to the older horses. Again, at this time of the year, there are 2 NTRA polls, a general poll that includes the older horses and a 3-year-old poll. The 3-year-old poll will go through the Triple Crown races. But your votes on the general poll that includes the older horses, your top 5, Wise Dan, Game On Dude, Lee, Palace Malice, and Will Take Charge. So again, Wise Dan at number 1, Will Take Charge at number 5. Any of that going to shake up given what happened Friday and Saturday?
No, I did move Closed Hatches up a notch. Those top horses, I've been voting Wise Dan on the top of the list all the way along, and there's no reason for me not to do that. There's people who say, how can you vote a grass horse on top of the list? Well, this guy's pretty special animal, and he keeps winning, and he came out and won effectively, I thought. Probably not at fully cranked status in the race on Friday. I like Wise Dan. I think he's a classy horse. He's a horse that, one of these days is going to be a Hall of Fame type of horse, I think. Game On Dude, I did love his performance, in the Santa Anita handicap, but still, I want to keep Wise Dan there until he tells me not to, or Game On Dude, puts in another big performance to put him over the top. Lee, hasn't changed in race. Talis Malice. The Will Take Charge, I flirted with the idea of maybe moving him up a notch or two, but I left him at number 5. That's a pretty nice group of horses that have done well this year, and his win in the Arkansas, what do I call Oaklawn Handicap, it was nice, and I would have kept him up that long delay, but he didn't beat a bunch of these others in here, and so I kind of left him in that spot.
And also interesting, your list last week, and I'd like to know if that's juggled around as well. Number 9 and number 10 on the general thoroughbred list for you, Beholder and Closed Hatches. We talked earlier on the Handicappers Report, noting that this was a pretty good crop of last year's 3-year-old fillies who are now becoming good 4-year-olds. And do they deserve to be mentioned here? You think yes, although you don't have Princess of Silmar in the mix.
I had Princess of Silmar a couple of weeks ago, and then decided this week what I voted on. I put Closed Hatches at 9 and Beholder at 10. I flipped them just because Closed Hatches has raced, and I thought, put in a nice race. What's the difference between 9th and 10th? Yeah, not a lot. But the fact that Closed Hatches had gone out to Arkansas, won that race, and was a decisive winner, but that's just the reason I made. That was the only change I made in that top thoroughbred poll. Yes, I'm looking forward to that race at Belmont on the 7th. That should be great. We could have all three of those fillies show up there. How terrific would that be? And maybe we'll be more. I guess not. I was going to say maybe we'll be more interested in that race than the Belmont Stakes, but probably not. But wow, what a lineup of races we could have that day with those 3 fillies all in there. Yeah. Oftentimes, Seth, we get one big star, and at that time of the year, and the others kind of duck to stay away. But no, it doesn't look like that's the case. So let's hope that they all stay on course with that, and we can see them in a little over 2 months.
Yeah, it seems a little bit of an aberration here because usually we lament they retire too early. Yep. We don't get them matched up until the Breeders' Cup. But this year it seems like older division, the older filly and mare division, the 3-year-old division is all shaping up to be a lot of fun. Mike, we got to wrap up, but before we do, I just wanted to remind people, you and Alan Carter, we had you on television with us last summer, 150 Years in Saratoga. You two authored that book, and I know during the summer you had a lot of successful signings and whatnot. Just wondering, the book is still available, I'm assuming, and were you happy with the results over the summer last year?
Yeah, absolutely still available. We hope that people will pick it up this year. Yeah, it was a fun summer. Al Carter and I have been friends for a long time when we worked together at the Racing Museum, and he turned to me and said, I thought it was going to be fun, but I didn't think it was going to be this fun and this busy, and we really had a good time. So that was I'm glad we were able to get the book out last year at the right time, and it was well received, and it was fun for both of us.
And again, we had a great time when you were on with us last summer talking about the book. It's a fun book. If people haven't picked it up yet, you can go to Amazon or whatever. 150 Years in Saratoga, Mike Kane and Alan Carter. Mike, as always, we appreciate the visit. We may tap into you sometime while you're down in Churchill Downs and get like a boots on the ground kind of report down there before we get to the Kentucky Derby. But again, appreciated the visit this afternoon or this morning.
Anytime, Seth. Happy to do it.
All right, Mike Kane, and again, you'll be able to see his latest NTRA poll vote. Comes out probably maybe today. Maybe I think they usually come out on Monday or Tuesday. All right, Mike Kane. A little earlier, Mike Penna from the Horse Racing Radio Network. All of which brings us to the end of the Monday edition of Racing Across America. We will march forward and head to a big weekend this weekend. We alluded to it earlier. Charlestown Classic comes up this weekend. Game on Dude, potentially Marino. Should be a fun event. We'll talk about that as the week progresses, and plenty more. Don't forget, we're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little bit earlier, it was the Handicappers Report. Anthony Mormino and I took a look at Turf Paradise and Parks. Hopefully we gave you some good information. So enjoy the races this afternoon. Cash a few tickets. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.